Hello, and welcome to Breezin with Bierman. I am the guest host for this program, Kurt Tazelaar. Our first guest is Gail Siggelakis. She is the author of The Affirming Way of Life. Gail, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell me about yourself.
Well, I was a teacher for 38 years, and my focus as a teacher, I think my greatest subject was the children. I loved helping them to discover their talents. The subjects were a vehicle for me. I wasn't interested in the subjects per se, I was interested in the children. And the subjects were a vehicle for me to help children discover their talents. When I turned 50, I had this epiphany. I said, first of all, I was thinking, aside from teaching, I always wanted to be a writer. I'm a passionate reader. And books have helped me tremendously in my life. And I wanted to be among those people that could also help people with my life. So I had this epiphany. I was 50 and I said, what have I really accomplished in my life? And I thought, I was quite disappointed. I thought, I don't have any special talents. I'm not necessarily an artist, I'm not a quilt maker, I'm not a gardener, but all of a sudden, a light bulb went off. And I realized that my greatest talent was that I am an outstanding affirmer. I always notice good things in other people and I tell them. And the best part of my epiphany was that I learned that quality from my bipolar mother, who until that point I felt all she had done was given me challenges in my life. And actually, I learned my best quality from her.
How do you be an affirming person with a bipolar person?
Well, you know, my mother, she always had positive words for my sister and I, and she also had positive words for everyone. She noticed the good in people, and she took the time to tell them. So she was an affirming person, and she affirmed me, and it became a life habit because I was used to hearing good things.
So this theme of affirming became the substance, the content of your book.
Correct.
Which we have here.
The Affirming Way of Life.
Yes. Available where?
Amazon.
Amazon.
Yes.
Everything's on Amazon these days.
Yes, and I'm happy to say my book is on Amazon.
So what is the central theme of your book? What is the message?
The message is that the words we speak to the people in our life make a tremendous impact, and we don't realize it. I feel like people spill their words without thinking of the impact, and the words we speak not only build other people up, but they also make our relationships closer.
Let's deal with specifics here, dealing with a person. How
Yes.
does one incorporate your philosophy into their daily interactions?
Okay. Well, it starts with recognizing that your words impact people. And then it involves looking. It's like looking with eyes for what's good in a person rather than what's bad. So for example, I'll give you a little story about how the Affirming Way transformed my relationship with my husband. When we are in a relationship for a long time, grievances build up, and we start to not notice, the good stuff in the person that we were all gaga over when we first came together. So one day, my husband had done the dishes, and he said, I did the dishes. I said, oh, that's good. And he said, well, you didn't say it. Didn't you appreciate it? And I said, well, Gus, I do lots of things too. I go grocery shopping. I don't expect you to say thank you. So I thought about it, and I realized that my husband really, he gave from the fullness of his heart. He was doing the dishes to make me happy. And so I had this shift, and I said, let me be sure to tell him when I appreciate what he does. So the next time he did the dishes, for example, I said, honey, that was really I so appreciate that you did the dishes. I hate to see a dirty, messy sink. And the interesting thing that happened was that as I made that shift, he started then telling me, he would notice things I did that he appreciated. And we started having just this greater give and take flow of this good energy. It became a habit for us that I will tell you has persisted over, at least the last 5 years. And it makes our relationship so much more precious because we tell each other how much we love and appreciate each other.
Were you able, in your career as a school teacher, to use this philosophy?
Very much so. For example, when I saw a student that might be, say, struggling with writing, and I saw them make an effort, like take some feedback that I gave them, and I saw them, say, make an effort to put more, say, adjectives in their writing, I would comment. I would say, boy, Stephen, I really like the way you use those adjectives. It's wonderful how you take feedback. So I would, with the students, whenever I saw them doing something that I thought was, on track, that was helping them to do their best, whether it was being kind. If someone was kind to another student, I might say, that was so kind of you to give your pencils to your table mate. You're a very thoughtful person. So I would bring to children's attention what they were doing right. And I would get lots of feedback from their parents at letting me know that it really made a difference in the way their children felt about themselves.
Were there differences in the way the children would respond according to their ages? Because like a kindergartner or a first grader might be easier to deal with than, say, fifth grader when they start becoming teenagers and, those problem years.
That's very interesting. It's a good point. I taught every grade from kindergarten through fifth, but really when I began working on this awareness I had of this affirming way of life approach, they were fifth graders that I taught. And you know what? I find, believe it or not, I find everybody, no matter what age they are, appreciates being affirmed. I mean, sometimes people may just blush and say thank you, or they may reject the compliment, but because it's hard to take in. But nonetheless, you can see on a person's face how it makes them feel valued, and it can make them recognize their value in ways that they didn't before.
Sometimes when we write about a subject, it forces us to examine our own beliefs or our own thoughts. Did you have an introspective experience with yourself in the writing of this book? Did you change at all?
That's a great question. I changed tremendously writing this book. But let me start by saying, in terms of the introspective, the amazing part for me of doing this book was I examined my relationships. I examined the impact, particularly I started with all the adults, my parents. I had an aunt that was very influential in my life. I had a stepmother. And I examined the impact that their words had on me. Some of the words, I grew up in a home where I had my mother's very positive words, but because of my mother's illness, my mother got a lot of negative. There were a lot of negative words that just flew freely. And it helped me to realize how important it is to censor ourselves, to catch ourselves before we say negative things. So one part was recognizing, really examining the impact and realizing, helping me to heal those relationships in writing this book. But the other big way that the book impacted me was that I had a dream. And when I started, I had no idea how to be a writer. And I found a writing coach. I joined a writers group, and the way I developed my faith in my ability to do this, to accomplish such a big goal, that was life transforming for me.
Some of this stuff is just a learning curve where it takes time. You'll write something, and then it'll take you 6 months to realize that what you wrote could be written much better. And then you'll understand
100%.
how to do it.
Oh my God. You know what's funny? Well, first I want to just add this. Yesterday I was talking to a friend who read my book, and she said to me, Gail, I am so fussy about editing. About when I read books, I always find errors from big publishing houses. She said, I didn't see one error because I revised and edited that book, I would say, over 100 times. I mean, revisions, edited. And yes, I mean, after I had written the whole book, I had to go back and revise everything because I was a much better writer by then.
And then you also have to give it a rest, because when you're that intense on it, it can cloud your mind also. Either it'll all seem horrible to you, or it'll all seem great and you lose your capacity to have critical judgments.
Yes, you're very right. Just the whole process to write a book, it was a fascinating process to me. You know, how, I would read other writers and I would study what I liked about their writing, and really one of the main ways that I develop the ideas in my book is through stories, because I discovered how I read a book about the process of writing, and the author, Dani Shapiro, she showed us about the process of writing all through her stories from her personal life. And I think that's one of the things that I keep getting feedback from people, that they love how I tell so many stories from my life. But yet, another piece of it was, because this was my first book, I wasn't sure that my ideas were strong just on their own. So I did a lot of research, and I found such interesting research that validated my life experience and my stories. And people tell me, the readers tell me, that they love that it's a balance of both personal stories and research and other people's experiences as well.
What's been some of the response to the book?
Okay. One person just the other day said to me that this story I told, it was in my town that I live in, Robbinsville. Our superintendent, about a year ago, I think it might have been 2 years ago, he was accidentally run over by a student on her way to school.